So you might say, what are you doing stood next to a kitchen bin on a table in a garden? And that would be a very fair question to ask, but it's all going to become clear. The reason I'm doing that is because today I'm going to be having a look at our new XACT rig and hook length line, which we've just released. Now, when Mick first told me about this line, I said, I'm not really a fan of monofilament, Mick. And he said, first thing, it's not a monofilament, it's a copolymer. And when he spent 20 minutes explaining to me what a copolymer was, I told him I like to use fluorocarbon a lot in my fishing, and that's because fluorocarbon sinks really well, it's stiff, and it's almost invisible in water. I do use mono, of course, in my fishing, mainly for carp fishing, on method feeders and what have you, but also in very specific roach fishing circumstances. So, for example, when we go to Staunton and Harold, and you're fishing at a long range in deep water, you're fishing braid direct, I like that mono adds a bit of stretch into your rig, but I also like that mono sinks a lot slower than fluorocarbon, or so I've been told. And when you're fishing on the drop for roach in deep water with a long hook length, I like the fact that it sinks slower. So I thought today I'd just get the new line out, my old fluorocarbon that I use and the mono that I use for all my other mono fishing, and just test them against each other, and that's where the bin comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a little basic rig, we're going to tie 3 hook lengths exactly the same length with exactly the same hook, and one by one we're going to test them in the bin. We'll do 10 different tests for each one, so it's nice and scientific, because the more data you've got, the more accurate you are. Then we're going to average that off and see what we get and see how fast these lines sink. Right, so this is the testing station, otherwise known as our old kitchen bin on a table in the garden, and I like to use this anytime I need to test any rigs, ground bait, etc. It's just a nice deep container. So then we've got a simple setup for testing with, which is just a bomb with a quick change swivel on, so we can change the hook length nice and easy. And then every hook length is going to be exactly the same, measured to the millimetre, 50 centimetres long, with a size 16 N20 hook, and we're going to use the XACT 0.165 diameter, and then as close as we can get in the other lines that I use, which is 016 Suplex and 016 Acolyte fluorocarbon. Fantastic lines, and we're going to see how they all react and how they sink. Let's get on with it. Right, so obviously we want this to be really scientific, as scientific as you can be with a bin on a table. So what we're going to do, we're going to do it 10 times for each line, because obviously there's going to be little variations with when we press this timer and what have you. So I think 10 runs through with each one will give it a good representation of how long each line takes to sink when we average it out. So the bomb's going to be dropped in on the corner, the hook's going to be held just over the surface in the middle, and every time we're just going to release it and press the timer. And when the hook hits the bottom, we'll stop the timer, we'll do that 10 times and average it out. Right, so we're going to kick things off with the XACT. And obviously when we started here, I had no idea what to expect with these timings, because these were the first ones. 6.12 for that one. I will say now, don't worry, I'm not going to show you each one of these all the way through. I'm just going to show you the first 3 for each line, just so you can get a feel of it and understand how the test works. If I showed you all of them, it's going to take far too long. It took a long time to carry out all these tests, so I'll just show you the first 3 and then we'll have a look at the results at the end. 6.27. So as I mentioned at the start, XACT is a copolymer, which is basically a modified monofilament. Whereas a monofilament is made of one material, a copolymer is made of 2 materials. And because of that, you get a lot more strength for the diameter, you get a lot more abrasion resistance, and you get less stretch than the standard monofilament line. 6.08. Right, no, this is the standard monofilament. 5.87. So this is the old standard traditional monofilament. It's the Drennan Suplex, and I've been using this for the last few years with absolutely no problems at all for my hybrid and method feeder fishing. Use it a lot down at Tamar for catching a load of skimmers on it, and it's been absolutely fantastic. No problems whatsoever. 5.7. So as you can see, already a bit of a pattern developing here. You can see that the mono is sinking that little bit quicker than the XACT, which to be honest I was a bit surprised about. I didn't expect any real differences so far. I certainly thought we'd have to do a bit more testing before we saw any differences. 6.15. Right, and this is the fluorocarbon. 5.23. So straight away with the fluorocarbon, you can see that's sunk so much quicker than both the other two lines we've tested so far. Could obviously just be a random testing error, but as you'll see with this one, it soon develops into a bit of a pattern. 5.33. Again, I've had absolutely no trouble at all with this Acolyte fluorocarbon. In fact, I've tried a lot of fluorocarbons, and in my opinion, this is the best one I've tried so far. Really, really like it. It ties up lovely. Not strength, really good, and yeah, great line. 5.53. Right, the results are in. We've done the 10 tests for each line, and I'm really quite surprised about what we found out there. I'm going to put the numbers on the screen now for you, so you can see all the 10 results for each line, and the average, and the difference. So the fluorocarbon took on average 5.5 seconds to sink, the 50 centimeters. The monofilament took 5.9 seconds, so a bit slower there. But the XACT, 6.2 seconds. So that's, when you work it out, it's 13% slower than the fluorocarbon, which is mental. I didn't realise it was going to be that much. And obviously, the longer your hook length, the bigger the difference. So if you've got a metre hook length, it's going to be more than a second and a half slower sinking than the fluorocarbon, which is brilliant. When you're fishing for roach off bottom, you want that bait floating as long as you can. Especially if you're using floating maggots, it's going to be even more, I imagine. So, yeah, to have the bait off the bottom for that much longer could be a massive advantage. Right, so I thought I'd just do a little bit of a conclusion video now that's all done and let you know where I stand with this line. So, obviously I've been testing this all winter at Hallcroft, mainly for my carp fishing and for my silverfish fishing on the Freedom Masters winter pairs. I was really just testing it for reliability, but I've not really tested anything else about it. So, obviously I was always going to replace all my mono hook lengths for my carp fishing with this, mainly just because it's so much stronger for the diameter. This line I've tested today is 0.165 diameter and it's 5 pound 4 ounces breaking strain. The other line I've been using, which is a similar diameter at 0.16, breaks at 4 pounds. So anytime you've got more strength for the same diameter, it's obviously a no-brainer. But I thought that'd probably be it for me. I thought I'd just use it for my carp fishing, keep my fluorocarbon hook lengths for my silverfish fishing. Everybody's happy. But now I've done this testing, genuinely, to have a line that sinks that much slower is a massive advantage for me. When I'm fishing for roach and skimmers, a lot of that is all about catching on the drop and catching off bottom, or having a really slow fall and catching as the bait hits the bottom. So if this can give me nearly a 15% increase in fall time, I think I'd be stupid not to use it. Also really like just how supple it is compared to fluorocarbon. So I'm sure there will be a place in my fishing for fluorocarbon still. But without a doubt, I am 100% going to tie up a load of this now for this summer, use it for a lot of my roach fishing and skimmer fishing, and see how we get on with that. Really quite excited about it. So I'll try it and I'll get back to you later in the year and I'll tell you what I think about it then.